generate. So we're able to bring to market a relevant creative within a day or two, and we're able to then show the information to prospective clients to either join our company or to even do their first trade. So for example, recently NVIDIA announced that they will do a stock split. So between the announcement and the stock split, it was like 2 weeks. And through Gen AI, we were able to cut down the time needed to generate a new creative from scratch to activation from roughly 1 week to within 1 day. And the 4 extra days in the market allow us to convince more potential clients to sign up with us.
I think in Mediacorp, as the national media network, so basically we are looking AI across the whole media value chain, from content creation, audience engagement, internal digitalization, as well as to drive the creativities and innovations across the whole organization. I think some of you probably noticed that through some of the digital products that we're operating, like CNA, MeWatch, there are already some Gen AI powered applications. For example, if you go to CNA, you probably noticed that we do have this audio story, which is we're using the text-to-speech technology. You noticed that recently we launched this like fast, this is a new feature which is kind of like providing a short form content using, like say, Gen AI technologies to creating or extracting the key informations from a long article. And there are a lot more coming. From the commercial point of view, we started to use, for example, generative AI or even kind of like AI voice technologies to help us to creating some of the audio content using different type of AI technology, voice technology, which I think we have been heard across the different panels. So in general, I think AI is definitely helping us to, along the journey to fulfill, to being the national media network as well as the kind of the largest content operator.
I think for us, very similarly to a lot of what we've heard today, a lot of what we'll hear from the folks sitting here as well, we use generative AI to drive efficiency in what we do in digital planning and digital buying. Currently, a lot of the tools we're already leveraging internally, so where it comes from the top of the funnel in campaign planning, through to campaign execution, through to creative execution, all the way through post-campaign reporting, how do we bring efficiencies to our agencies and clients to cut down the time efficiencies that are spent against more administrative tasks?
So we have a lot of AI examples. So a lot of what's already been said, a lot of what has been shared earlier in the day, creating images, campaigns, paid campaigns, finding headlines, internal comms. But when it comes to generative AI, and that's where I feel the bigger challenge for a company like Reckitt and similar companies is finding the legal, guardrails around which we can test out more and more stuff. So we are still defining how we implement Gen AI at scale, what are the legal implications, the ethical implications. So Reckitt is a company that has goods which are medical goods. They function within certain restrictions. So we have to be very careful about what role AI will play when we start using it in marketing for goods, whether it's a brand like Durex or whether it's Enfa, which is infant nutrition. These are brands which come under a medical restrictive kind of environment. So we are defining and very closely looking at the space and also trying to define the ethical and legal dilemmas. And that's quite a bit as we discover how broad AI can be and how generative it can go. So yeah, that's the challenge for us.
At Plaza Premium Group, generative AI is actually very new to us. We've just started moving into the space. So while we are really excited about the potential of AI, we are also treading very, very carefully because there are a lot of things to consider. But what we are going to use it primarily is across our different verticals, mainly to drive insights for content generation and personalization. We focus, at least for digital, we focus very much on the B2C of it, and we know that consumers nowadays, they are impatient for information. They want things quick, fast, and accurate. So we want to use AI to give us that insights, to cut down on all the unnecessary data points consolidation, to give us a brief and overview, and then while we can then use it to test and trial, and then to really optimize it for our consumers across the different channels and platforms and the different verticals and brands that we have.
All right, so Deirdre, one of the bigger, I guess one of the bigger questions, at least for this audience and for the ATS audience, is how is generative AI going to manifest within ad tech systems, right? So it'd be great to hear from you in terms of how StackAdapt is thinking about, all right, so like within our tools, within what we offer to clients, how do we, or is it right to kind of integrate generative AI capabilities into the current capabilities of the platform?
Yeah, I think, building on what I was explaining, what we are doing at StackAdapt is today we're testing a lot of these functionalities internally, but we want to expose it externally to our partners as well, because there are a lot of functionalities that, people spend a lot of time doing that can be spent better on creative activation or strategy. I have been sort of telling this story to a lot of, of the folks that I've networked with today, but 15 years ago when I started in the industry, I was manually uploading about 400 creatives into DFA. And that was taking, who knows how many hours. I was up till 3 a.m., during Black Friday, just making sure it was all operationalized. This is even before tools like AdWords Editor or, the Facebook tool. I think it was manually in a website UI. So, what we're trying to do is we've moved on from that phase where we have the technologies to do those solutions quite quickly, but generative AI, if we can expose things like quick reporting, quick insights, quick campaign planning or trafficking, actually our agencies and clients can get to the point of being able to activate campaigns that actually impact their bottom line and help them think about what profit means for their businesses. So to answer your question, absolutely, I think, generative AI today, to me, they're table stakes. I think a lot of people shy away from the concept because people are worried about it taking their jobs. I would hope that people want to spend more time actually focused on the things that mean more, because what Gen AI can't do is connect the dots from end to end when it comes to a strategic approach. And actually, as an agency planner or buyer, or as a customer, you want to be spending more time giving the brand your voice. Both of you mentioned like user trust and privacy, making sure you're approaching Gen AI in the right way. So how can we gear our resources to the things that matter versus the administrative tasks that actually are time wasters for us?
Right. So so in terms of the ability to kind of move away from manually uploading hundreds of assets to create the permutations required, like for greater personalization, there's also kind of a customer experience aspect in terms of representing the brand and making sure everything is like in the voice that you want for the ads that you're putting out with all these permutations that are going out. So I want to hear from Esther your thoughts on it. Because Plaza Premium Group, you have a very premium brand voice that needs to be maintained throughout these kind of, this kind of messaging. Is that type of, hyper-personalized dynamic solution where you're able to use generative AI to create assets automatically, is that something that Plaza Premium Group would consider, or is it something that is, because of the nature of your brand, needs to be really, really carefully monitored and deployed in the right way, if at all?
Yes, definitely, because hyper-personalization is such a big word, right? It's really going down to the one-to-one. Plaza Premium Group, we've got 4 core brands that we're managing. Plaza Premium First, which is actually more like the elite lounge for the first-class passengers. I've got the Plaza Premium Lounge for everybody. We've got the Aerotel Transit Hotel. We've got airport passenger services, and we've got airport dining. So what we realize through our internal findings is that the consumers who actually go to all these different locations, they are not the same. So there is no way for one size fits all for us. So we definitely will be using AI to help us harness the information about them. what you're looking for, help us to predict your next action, so that then we will be able to communicate the products or the services that are relevant to them. So ideally, we would like to move to hyper-personalization, up to in the long run. But for now, it's more about because all our data points are in silos. So we are trying to bring everything together using generative AI to give us the information that we need, and then how then we can really harness it and use it to then create content or even to deliver the correct messaging to them across the various platforms that we have.
Got it. And Sushmita, you mentioned earlier that Reckitt is they're taking a very deliberate approach in terms of getting the organization in place and getting the guardrails in place before the application of generative AI happens. So, but even though it's still being deliberated on, would you be able to speak to kind of like how you can see it manifesting when the guardrail is in place and when the organization is ready for deployment? What does that look like? What kind of scenarios would that be?
So this is about Gen AI. There is predictive AI, and we do a lot of work around that. And predictive AI is obviously all over. Like, we use it for our chatbots. We use predictive AI internally. I think we are using AI. I'm just saying that when it comes to Gen AI, and because, there's so much to look at, we are figuring it out on what the use cases can be. So for us, for instance, for the brands that we have, it's an FMCG company, so connecting with the consumer is first. And when I talk about B2B, we are talking about some very significantly granular use cases, whether it's with facility management companies or with schools or hospitals. So for that, and how to use our products, which obviously are in larger SKUs, we are using AI to explain usage of products, storage of products to our end consumers who are distributors or owners of large facility management companies. So there again, we have to be very careful with our information. We have to be very accurate because there is involvement of product, which is highly, we have to be cautious about it in places like schools and hospitals and hotels. So we have to be very carefully give this information as accurately as possible on storage and how to use. So there, AI has really simplified our life. We know exactly what the regulations around it are, what our product does, doesn't do, how do you store. So we are kind of collating all of it together and creating a persona, which is, again, that's important. You were talking about brand. You want to also, in a chatbot, come across as a brand voice, which is in sync with what you want to say, how you want your brand to be perceived. So we are very careful about the usage of words, of information, how it's outlined, very careful with our recommendations, very careful with what we say, what we don't say, and anything that seems a little dangerous in terms of the question or something which we perhaps didn't expect, we definitely want to move it to a human voice, human kind of intervention, and someone human to kind of pick up that query. So we're very careful about information, but yeah, AI is being used like that. And the two things we are looking out is, one, make sure it's as accurate as possible and as universal in its information giving as possible. Second, it's as close to our brand representation and how our brand sounds or looks like even on the outside. So a chatbot shouldn't sound like a really simple, cute Gen Z girl when actually we are a brand that's a lot more serious. So we have to just make sure the persona kind of matches.
Got it. And Derren, I want to bring this question to you because this is tied to personalization, but in terms of, you mentioned earlier, the ability to, because of the nature of your business, the time element is important, right? You need to be kind of in the moment and stuff. So you're able to, you would be able to generate assets, create copy quicker and faster at a higher volume than you would before. But with more volume, that becomes more things in terms of quality and making sure that despite the increase in volume, the quality needs to be maintained. So as an organization, as you guys move through using these tools and assets, how do you think about maintaining the quality with the increase in volume as well?
I would think that to improve the quality with volume, we probably have to, unfortunately, slow down some stuff. As much as we want to have like hundreds of permutation, eventually we still have to get our compliance to approve all the ads. And if we are unable to pass the compliance check, and there's only so many of them, we will not be able to do the proper quality check. So I guess maybe on our end, the IG group is actually looking to automate that through AI as well. So we are trying to create our own kind of compliance bot. And in that sense, we're able to then now feed more volume through that bot and then get more quality output to the market. Yeah.
So you're saying that the checks and balances, like for example, the Q&A process is also changing and evolving along with the deployment process.
Correct. I believe the QA system probably will be automated away as well, and that will free up more time for our, let's say, the marketers to be more creative, to come up with more impactful ads.
Interesting. And Tim, and feel free to answer this within the full breadth of your remit, because I mean, what you look after is, it's a lot more than just ads, right? So like, I mean, Mediacorp is you're a publisher, you're a content company. How do you think about managing volume with content, making sure that, because the quality is at the standards that Mediacorp expects and is required of it?
I think there has to be a balance. I mean, of course, with the new AI capabilities, things are getting much easier, much accessible. But I think, as one of the biggest content creator, we have to be very mindful to a couple of things, which is potentially could affecting, the volume side, because it's going to be looking at how ethically we are able to delivering those content. For example, from a copywriting point of view, we have to think about how to protect our own IP and also how not to infringing other people's IP. I think that is also one of the biggest challenge or risk in the generative AI era. We have to make sure that the trust has been set, so that, because I think the audience perceptions was hugely affected by deepfake videos, all those like easy generated, fake, I would say AI generated content, which is low quality. So I think those are the things that we have to think about, and also put that into our overall principles when we are rolling out that AI and also AI-powered services. So balancing between the quality, the volumes, and also the ethical aspects. I think all those things are currently being adopted and also introduced as a company-wide AI governance policy. I think that is super important, especially when you are dealing with large amount of content, audience-facing, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, if I can just add to that, I think, a lot of you guys have referenced like user trust, but once you lose user trust, it's really hard to get it back. So I think it's absolutely critical. We talk a lot about privacy, GDPR, cookie deprecation, but the reality is like, there's so much more data being released to the open web from AI now. And so I think all of us we have a responsibility, whether we're agency, client, tech vendor, we all have a responsibility to sort of govern that in such a way where we're protecting user privacy, user trust, and also people have a lot of options. So once you break that user trust, someone's going to go to another brand or another vendor. So I think it's absolutely critical, both from a user lens and a company lens, to make sure that we're delivering against that promise.
And Deirdre, I want to stay with you because we've thus far talked about customer experience through the lens of, hey, a brand is creating assets, creating content, creating ads, putting it out into the market, and how does that impact the way consumers receive it, right? But for you guys, your customers are like agencies or brands themselves and stuff like that. Have you just kind of I guess since generative AI became a large thing and became part of the zeitgeist, have your customers conversations been asking, hey, like, how are there are you going to improve, the UI? Are you going to improve the experience of us using your platform through generative AI? Is that a large part, medium part, small part of the conversation these days?
Yeah, to be honest, I think everyone wants it to be easier, right? Everyone wants it to be seamless. Even as a consumer myself, like if I go onto ChatGPT or Google and I ask it a question and it gives me a bad answer, as a consumer, I'm impatient. And I'm like, why has this happened? So I guess the short answer to your question is, yes, of course, we want to make sure we're providing the best tools. But that also takes work. That also takes time. That's also the reason why we haven't released our platform externally yet, because I think you rightly mentioned, and you know, Derren as well, is like there's a lot of testing and learning and QA that goes in the back end, even more so because there's so much data readily available. There's so much information readily available. So we almost have to catch up to say, okay, we need to make sure it's curated. We need to make sure we have checks and balances in place. And that's equally as important as getting something quickly to market. I think that's something you mentioned as well.
Got it. And I think so far all of you have in some form touched on ethics, directly or indirectly. I mean, it's not like it's a small thing with everything we're talking about here. So I want to dive specifically into kind of ethics, but based on the application from where all you guys sit, right? So Sushmita, I want to go back to you because you mentioned Reckitt legal teams and people wanting to make sure that we're doing this in an ethical way. So I was hoping you could speak a little bit more around the conversations in this space as Reckitt is discussing the application of generative AI.
I think I'll also broaden it a little bit. Now, for example, you create an AI voice agent, and you bring them in, and you get them to speak to your consumer. Obviously, voice agents are now more human-like, but for an organization that's obviously built on brand and trust and user experience is great. The user doesn't have to wait. A voice agent can, handle about 100 calls at one go. So resource utilization is there. There is customer delight, so to say, because you're getting a call from a brand. But the question that the brands are asking now is, should I let my consumer know that he or she is talking to a voice agent? Or should I just call the voice agent Lily, Susie, or, Tommy, whatever. I'm just saying, talk to Susie and get your questions answered. Now, is Susie a voice agent? Should I tell the consumer that? Should I not? That's an ethical question. As a brand, that's what we have to answer at various stages, whether we are a small brand, a big brand. How much do you want to tell a consumer? Tomorrow, somebody was mentioning that in the panel, and that's, I think, the future, where all of us have a personal AI assistant who talks to another AI assistant of a brand and gets movie tickets booked. That's going to happen in the future. We will all each have like a co-pilot or whatever, a personal assistant who pays a bill or books our tickets. And that personal assistant would be okay to talk to. But today, the consumer A is not ready. The world has moved too fast. So they're still getting used to a chatbot and WhatsApp and all of that. You bring a voice agent and they're having this full live conversation with them, but the brand hasn't told them it's actually an agent. So I think these are the questions that keep coming in quite a lot. How will we manage? Do we mention it somewhere? Do we call it out saying, hi, I'm Lily, I'm your voice assistant helper? Do we not? Where does so I guess this is just one example, but similar examples one will confront as we create and use Gen AI models all across our business. For example, digital human. Today we can call it out because, oh, that's a digital human. But I think 3 months down the line, a digital human could be the face of any brand. And it'll be difficult for you to know whether that's Bella or Gigi or Hadid or, it's a new model. It's going to get difficult, at least on screen, on digitally. So again, as a brand, say you're a cosmetic brand or a clothes brand, are you going to say that this digital human has been created by us, who's showcasing our model and has the perfect figure? Or are you going to create it? So I guess there are a lot of questions that will come up, and as they come up, we'll have to answer it. Some brands have gone ahead and said, it's okay, I'm not going to call out a voice agent because it's so human-like. I don't think there's a need. Some brands have said, no, I think that's unfair to my user. They should know they're talking to a machine. And that's so I guess we all as individual brands will make that call. I think Tim wants to add something.
Oh, no, that's all resonating with. So I think, but I'm just trying to, coming from a content creator point of view, I guess if you look at the audience reactions, that the transparency is what they are trying to understand, because they want to know that as you correctly pointed out, that they want to know that am I talking to a real person or AI generated person, right? I think that's very important, so that we actually started to introducing the different principles that when we actually publish or create any of the content, that we have to let the audience know that that is generated by AI. Give the transparencies to the user, let them know that you are actually dealing with like AI-generated content. That's, we call it like, the transparency, and we have to disclose the information whenever appropriate, right? So we are also from different countries, we see that is also the trends that even on the TV broadcasting, we see more and more like, AI-generated content. Of course, there always be a watermark saying that this is generated by AI, so that audiences is able to tell that, so that they can gain, the trust to the brand, to the creator. I think that's super important.
So far, I think we've spoken a lot about what generative AI can do and kind of, okay, if you're going to do it, what do you have to watch out for? But we haven't, I mean, a lot of times you don't think, what's not discussed as much is what generative AI can't do. What are the limitations, right? So I want to spend, let's see, about 5 minutes left. I want to spend some time on this. So, Derren, in your capacity as a marketer, what are some of the real limitations in terms of how generative AI can be deployed these days, in your mind?
So you're saying what we can do or what we cannot do?
What it cannot do, like what are the things that, for example, like if you're having conversations internally in terms of, hey, like we have this amazing new technology, it can do all these things, but the reality is like when it's being applied to marketing and advertising, what are some maybe misconceptions in terms of what people think it can do, but really it's not even not ready yet, or there's other tools that are better for it, or it's a bit overkill to try to apply this here, that sort of thing?
I will give a very cop-out answer. I will say that in terms of my current day-to-day, people are using they want to use AI for some kind of like insight generation and for campaign optimization. But to be honest, that had already been achieved through all the auto bidding on the DSP platform. So to be honest, we already have that technology. We are using it already. And Gen AI probably can help improve it further, but we don't really need to rely on it so far. Hopefully in the future we are then, and also because on the platform, we are not able to access all the information. Like data are not being, we are not able to use all the data that we generate. So even if we want to use Gen AI to help us come up with more insights, help us identify patterns, we cannot. And it might be better that the platform itself use Gen AI as a feature to help us improve our buying experience.
And Esther, what about for you guys at Plaza Premium Group? Are the conversations around, like tempering expectations in terms of applications and of that sort?
I think when it comes to brand, consumer trust is very important. Once you lose it, all the years that you've spent building it, it's gone. How do you get it back? So there is a certain level of transparency that we need to do. We believe in declaring that whatever we're doing is AI generated, because machine learning goes through stages, right? At the beginning, they're learning, and all the information may not be correct. Even if you go to Google, you call up Gemini, there is a disclaimer that says, please check the accuracy of the information provided. So as a brand, we want to be really careful how we implement and how we execute it. We also want to make sure that, AI is really great, but to help us with speed to market, things that are very process-driven can be used to speed up for efficiency's sake, right? Where else, for certain things, there is so much to talk about the human touch. AI, I believe that while empathy can be taught and learned, there is a certain level that cannot be managed by AI. So there needs to be a balance between machine and what we do as a human. So there needs to be a certain level of governance or gatekeeping to ensure that we are executing it correctly and also being able to serve our customers, in a correct manner, in the way that they deserve, yeah.
And Deirdre, what about from an ad tech standpoint in terms of what it can and can't enable, and misconceptions in that space?
Yeah, I think Derren alluded to it a little bit, but basically, the data that you give an AI model is what it has to learn off of, and there's no way for that to be completely exhaustive today. So I think you mentioned empathy. We would literally have to give an AI every single response to an empathetic reaction to a prompt in order for it to be able to respond. And then the other thing, if you look at how you interact with Gen AI today, I think the difference, we talk about AI like it's new. I think it was referenced in another panel, but it's been around for a long time. But the reality is now we can interact one-on-one with AI. That's the key difference. That being said, you have to give it a very specific prompt of what you're looking to solve. Otherwise, it's going to give you a bad answer. So you can sometimes see when you open up a chatbot, you ask it a question, it comes back 50% right. You have to reprompt it. So the reality is, you mentioned human intervention. Absolutely, we still need that level of human intervention to give that extra level of data to ensure that we have an accurate response.
Great. All right, guys. So we are pretty much at the end. So do I have time for one more question? Okay, great. So I want to end this just something that's kind of future-facing, right? So Sushmita and Tim, I'm going to direct this question to you guys to kind of close things out. But if you were to, it doesn't necessarily have to pertain to your specific job and where you work, but like if there's something you want this audience to take away from in terms of thinking about medium, long-term implications of generative AI for this industry, like what would you tell the audience?
Okay, that's a little bit of looking out in the future, but I think the power of Gen AI, for instance, for us, I mean, not just Reckitt, again, broader, is where it can impact, parts of the society or sections of the society that need information the most, and where it's the least accessible. I feel I feel there the impact will be the most. Now, if I were to look at examples like the neurodiversity community, they could benefit a lot with voice agents and information on how to really understand if a place is neurodiverse friendly or not. So I feel these communities which have so far not got the help or the tech intervention that they've needed, their Gen AI could create a big impact. Coming back to looking at it from a brand perspective, one of our brands is Durex, and intimate wellness is a big concern. It's hugely talked about, but yet you don't have somewhere you can go and find answers to. And that's a space, whether it's about intimate wellness in heterosexuality or whether it's about any other kind of intimate wellness, people need to find answers to it. And as a brand, that's a space that we could own going out in the future, and generative AI could help us address questions which today, for example, are not answered with a Google response. They are more in a Reddit or a Quora than somewhere else. But could I get all of it together? So I feel these diverse community, neurodiverse, LGBTQ+, or even medically diverse communities which don't have answers to, that's the space where I feel a lot of change will happen. And I hope it does, because that's the future, right?
All right, Tim, take us home.
I think that we as I would say, content creator, publisher, on many hats, we also at the same time a consumer. So from a consumer or audience point of view, I definitely expecting that we can have a more native experiences when we are looking at the Gen AI tech. For example, we're talking about ad tech. We also have to think about how those Gen AI is helping us to create a better user experiences, so that you can add on that ad tech or the marketing side of piece, and then make it a bit of better experience or native experience. Because we're all talking about ChatGPT, Gemini, all those kind of conversational AI, but how do they help you as a service provider to improve your user experiences so that you can build some native experiences so that the user, the attention is able to be increased, and so that they can come back and they're really having a better experience. So it's not really just, I think for me, I would really wish that it's not just a standalone ad tech, but also have to think about how that technology can be integrated into the product offerings, the different platforms, so the experience can be much better, or even a native experience. I think that's my personal wish in that space. Maybe could be given like a couple of years. We see more such product going to be released in the market.
I think to add to that, I think if Gen AI can answer the question on what is the ROI on marketing, I think it's solved. It solves everything for us.
Great, appreciate it, guys. So everyone, Give our panelists a round of applause. Thank you.